James and Amara Wilson stepped out of their car in front of Le Chateau, the fanciest restaurant in town. The golden lights from inside made the building glow like something from a movie. Tonight was special. It was their 5th wedding anniversary. For months they had saved up and planned for this dinner. "You look beautiful," James said, fixing his tie. Amara smiled at her husband. She wore a long blue dress that sparkled when she moved, while James looked sharp in his best black suit. "I can't believe we finally got a table here," Amara said. "You had to book it 3 months ago." James nodded. "Nothing but the best for my favorite surgeon." He was proud of his wife. Amara had recently become the head surgeon at City Hospital after years of hard work. James himself was doing well too. His architecture company had just finished designing a big office building downtown. They walked hand in hand to the entrance. A doorman in a fancy uniform opened the heavy glass door for them. Inside, crystal chandeliers hung from the ceiling. The walls were covered with paintings in gold frames. Soft music played while waiters in black and white moved silently between tables. At the front desk, a young woman with blonde hair looked up at them. Her smile disappeared quickly when she saw James and Amara. She looked down at her computer screen. "Good evening," James said. "We have a reservation for 2 under Wilson." The woman clicked her mouse a few times. Wilson. I'm sorry, I don't see your name here." James frowned. "That's strange. I made this reservation 3 months ago. I even got a confirmation email." He pulled out his phone to show her. The woman barely glanced at it. "I'm sorry, sir, but we're fully booked tonight. There must have been some mistake." Just then, a white couple walked in behind them. The woman at the desk looked past James and Amara and smiled brightly. "Mr. and Mrs. Peterson, so good to see you again. Your table is ready." James noticed that the woman didn't check her computer for their names. The white couple was led immediately to a table near the window. "Excuse me," James said politely. "I can see you have tables available. We've been planning this night for months. It's our anniversary." The woman's smile tightened. "Let me get my manager." A few moments later, a tall man with gray hair at his temples approached. His name tag read, "Henri Dupont, manager." "Is there a problem?" he asked, looking between James, Amara, and the hostess. "Yes," James explained. "We made a reservation months ago, but your hostess says she can't find it. We have the confirmation email." Henry barely looked at the phone James held out. "I apologize, but if Sophie can't find your reservation, there's nothing I can do. We're fully booked tonight." As he spoke, another couple walked in, also white, and mentioned they didn't have a reservation, but wondered if anything was available. Without hesitation, Henri turned to them with a warm smile. "Of course, we just had a cancellation right this way." Amara squeezed James's hand hard. 20 years of dealing with situations like this had taught them both when to recognize what was happening. "Sir," James said, his voice calm but firm, "we can clearly see that you're seating people without reservations while telling us, who have a confirmed reservation, that you're full. May I ask why?" Henri's smile disappeared completely. He lowered his voice and leaned closer to them. "Look, this is a high-class establishment. Our regular customers expect a certain atmosphere. Perhaps you would be more comfortable somewhere else. I can recommend several other restaurants more suitable for people like you." A few nearby guests looked over, some with uncomfortable expressions. One woman sitting near the entrance had her phone out, pointing it subtly in their direction. Amara felt her face grow hot with anger and embarrassment. James stood very still, his jaw tight. "People like us?" James repeated quietly. "You mean successful professionals celebrating their anniversary? Or do you mean black people?" Henry's face hardened. "I'm going to have to ask you to leave. You're causing a disturbance." "We haven't raised our voices," Amara said. "You're the one creating a scene by refusing to honor our reservation." "Security," Henry called over his shoulder. A large man in a black suit appeared from near the bar. James shook his head slowly. "Don't worry, we're leaving. But you should know that this isn't the end of this conversation." He put his arm around Amara's shoulders, and they walked out with their heads held high. though both felt the sting of humiliation burning in their chests. Several diners watched them go, some whispering behind their hands. Outside, the cool night air hit their faces. Amara took a deep breath to steady herself. "I'm so sorry, baby," James said, holding her close. "I wanted tonight to be perfect." "It's not your fault," Amara replied, her voice shaking slightly. "It's 2025 and this still happens. I deal with life and death every day at the hospital. No one questions my skill when they're bleeding on my operating table, no matter what color I am." James nodded. He knew what she meant. In their professional lives, they had both reached the top of their fields. James's architecture firm was one of the most respected in the city. Just last month, the mayor had personally thanked him for his design of the new community center, and yet moments like this still happened. "Let's not let them ruin our night," Amara said, straightening her shoulders. "We can go to Antonio's instead. They always treat us well there." James smiled at his wife's strength, but inside, he felt a cold anger building. What they didn't know at Le Chateau was that James wasn't just any architect. His firm had recently been selected to design the city's new cultural center, a project worth millions. And Amara wasn't just any surgeon. She sat on the board of the city's medical foundation, which hosted charity events for the city's elite every year. As they drove away from Le Chateau, neither James nor Amara spoke of revenge. They were too dignified for that. But they both knew that actions had consequences, and Le Chateau would soon learn that treating people this way came with a price. What they didn't notice was the woman from the restaurant, the one with the phone. Posting a video online, she had recorded the whole incident. By morning, thousands would see what had happened at Le Chateau, and that would be just the beginning of the restaurant's problems. By the next morning, James and Amara had almost put the ugly incident behind them. After leaving Le Chateau, they had gone to Antonio's, a smaller Italian restaurant where the owner knew them well. Though not as fancy, the food was delicious, and they were treated with respect and warmth. They had managed to salvage their anniversary night with good wine, pasta, and dancing at a jazz club afterward. James woke up early as usual and made coffee. He had a big meeting at work about the new cultural center project. As he checked his phone, he noticed dozens of notifications, messages from friends, colleagues, and even some numbers he didn't recognize. Frowning, he opened the first one. "James, is this you and Amara?" The message contained a link to a video. He clicked on it and nearly dropped his phone. There on the screen was the scene from last night, their conversation with Henri, the manager of Le Chateau. Someone had recorded the whole thing. The video showed clearly how they were treated while other couples were seated. It captured Henri's cold face and his comment about people like you. It showed James and Amara leaving with dignity despite the humiliation. The video had already been viewed over 50,000 times. Amara walked into the kitchen, tying her robe. "What's wrong? You look like you've seen a ghost." James handed her the phone silently. As she watched, her eyes widened. "That woman near the entrance," Amara said. "She must have recorded it." More messages kept coming in, friends expressing outrage, colleagues offering support, and the view count on the video kept climbing. "I need to get ready for work," James said after a moment. "I have that meeting with the mayor about the cultural center." Amara nodded. "I have surgeries scheduled all day. We can deal with this later." They went about their morning routine, trying to stay focused on the day ahead. But both felt a strange mix of emotions. The hurt was still there, but also a sense that something important was happening. At the hospital, Amara had barely reached her office when her assistant rushed in. "Dr. Wilson, there are reporters in the lobby asking for you. Something about a video?" Amara sighed. "Tell them I'm preparing for surgery and can't comment right now." Her phone rang. It was Diane Lambert, the head of the city's medical foundation where Amara served on the board. "Amara, I just saw that horrible video," Diane said. "Are you all right?" "I'm fine, Diane. James and I have dealt with this kind of thing before." "Well, it's absolutely unacceptable," Diane said firmly. "You know we were planning to host our annual charity gala at Le Chateau next month? Not anymore. I've already called them to cancel. Several other board members saw the video too and agreed. Amara felt a small flutter of satisfaction but kept her voice professional. That's your decision, of course. It certainly is. And frankly, any establishment that would treat one of our city's finest surgeons this way doesn't deserve our business. Now, are you still coming to the board meeting tomorrow? We'd love your input on the new scholarship program. Of course, Amara said. I'll be there. After hanging up, Amara sat quietly for a moment. The Medical Foundation's annual gala was a major event that brought in the city's wealthiest donors. Losing it would hurt Le Chateau financially, but she took no joy in revenge. She only wanted people to be treated fairly. Across town, James was sitting in the mayor's office with the city planning committee. They were reviewing his designs for the new cultural center, a $20 million project that would transform the downtown area. These are excellent, James, Mayor Thompson said, looking over the blueprints. Your firm has outdone itself. Thank you, Mayor, James replied. The mayor's assistant entered and whispered something in her ear. Mayor Thompson's expression changed. James, I just heard about what happened to you and Amara last night. That video is all over social media. This morning, the other committee members looked up, curious. It's nothing, James said, uncomfortable with the attention. It's not nothing, the mayor insisted. It's discrimination, pure and simple. And in our city in 2025, it's disgraceful. One of the committee members, an older white man named George Hansen, cleared his throat. I saw that video too. My wife showed it to me at breakfast. That manager should be fired. James was surprised. George had always been polite but distant with him at meetings. You know, Mayor Thompson said thoughtfully. We were planning to host a dinner at Le Chateau next week for the investors flying in for the cultural center project. I think we should find another venue. That's not necessary on my account, James said, though part of him appreciated the gesture. It's not just for you, the mayor replied. It's about what kind of city we want to be, what kind of businesses we want to support. I can't in good conscience give city money to an establishment that discriminates against our citizens. After the meeting, James stepped outside to find several reporters waiting for him. Mr. Wilson, how do you feel about the response to the video? What video? James asked, genuinely confused. The video of you and your wife being discriminated against has over 200,000 views now. Celebrities are sharing it. People are calling for a boycott of Le Chateau. James was stunned. He hadn't checked his phone during the meeting. I have no comment at this time, he said, making his way to his car. Once inside, he checked his phone. The reporter wasn't exaggerating. The video had exploded online. Local news stations were covering it. Several well-known actors and musicians who lived in the city had shared it with angry comments. Boycott Le Chateau was trending. His office called. James, the phone is ringing off the hook. Reporters want statements. Also, Henri Dupont from Le Chateau has called 6 times trying to reach you. Tell Mr. Dupont I'm in meetings all day, James said, a hint of satisfaction in his voice. By lunchtime, both James and Amara were receiving messages from friends around the country who had seen the video. What had been a local story was becoming national news, an example of the everyday discrimination that still existed despite all the progress made. At Le Chateau, Henri Dupont was panicking. The restaurant's social media pages were flooded with angry comments. Reservation cancellations were pouring in. Several large parties, including the Medical Foundation Gala and the mayor's investor dinner, had already been lost. He tried desperately to reach the Wilsons to apologize, but they weren't taking his calls. What Henri didn't know was that the restaurant's owner, Marcel Beaumont, was currently on a flight back from Paris, having seen the video himself. And Marcel was furious, not with the Wilsons, but with Henri and how the situation had been handled. As James and Amara went about their workday, trying to focus on their jobs despite the growing storm around them, they had no idea that this was just the beginning. Their quiet dignity in the face of discrimination had struck a chord with people, and Le Chateau was about to learn a very expensive lesson about the true cost of prejudice in the modern world. Marcel Beaumont stepped out of the airport taxi and looked up at his restaurant. Le Chateau had been his life's work. He had started as a dishwasher 30 years ago, worked his way up to chef, and finally saved enough to buy the place 5 years ago. Now all that hard work might be ruined because of one terrible decision he hadn't even been there to make. The flight from Paris had been long, giving Marcel plenty of time to watch the video over and over. Each time his anger grew. Not at the couple who had been mistreated, but at his manager Henri and the hostess who had turned them away. Marcel had built his career on respecting everyone who came through his doors. His own parents had faced discrimination when they first arrived in this country. He had promised himself his restaurant would be different. Marcel pushed open the front doors. The lunch service should have been in full swing, but the dining room was nearly empty. Only 3 tables had customers. The staff stood around nervously, whispering to each other. When they saw Marcel, they fell silent. "Where is Henri?" Marcel asked, his voice tight with anger. "In the office," one of the waiters replied. Marcel marched to the back, threw open the office door, and found Henri on the phone, looking stressed. "Marcel, you're back early. I was just trying to handle this situation." "What situation, Henri?" "The one where you turned away customers because of the color of their skin? The one where you destroyed the reputation of my restaurant in a single night?" Henri put down the phone. "It's not what it looks like in that video. Those people didn't have a reservation. I was just following our policy about keeping tables for regular customers." Marcel slammed his hand on the desk. "I've seen the email, confirmation they showed you, and I've checked the reservation system myself during my flight. They had a reservation that was mysteriously deleted. Did you do that, Henri?" Henri's face went pale. I might have made a mistake." "A mistake? You've ruined us. Do you know how many cancellations we've had since yesterday? 78. The Medical Foundation Gala, the mayor's dinner, 3 corporate events, that's over $200,000 in lost business already." Henri swallowed hard. "I've been trying to reach the couple to apologize." "Apologize?" Marcel laughed bitterly. "You think an apology will fix this? The whole country thinks we're racist. Everything I've worked for, everything I've built, you've destroyed it all." "We can fix this," Henri said desperately. "We can release a statement, offer them a free meal." "You still don't understand how serious this is," Marcel interrupted. "This isn't about a free meal. This is about basic human dignity, and you're fired." Henri's mouth fell open. "Fired? But I've been with you for 5 years. And in one night you undid all the good work we've done in those 5 years. Clean out your desk. I want you gone in 30 minutes. Marcel left the office without waiting for a response. He needed to think. He needed to find a way to save his restaurant. But first, he needed to make things right with the couple his staff had humiliated. Meanwhile, James and Amara were having their own difficult day. The video had now been viewed over 1 million times. News vans were parked outside their house. Their phones wouldn't stop ringing. "This is getting out of hand," Amara said as she closed the curtains to block the cameras. "I had to cancel 2 surgeries today because I couldn't focus with all this attention." James nodded. "My office said we've received over 300 emails from people sharing similar stories of discrimination. Some reporter even showed up at my parents' house in Detroit." Amara sat down heavily on the couch. "I never wanted to become the face of some movement. We just wanted to celebrate our anniversary." "I know," James said, sitting beside her. "But maybe some good can come from this. People are talking about these issues openly. That woman who recorded the video, she saw something wrong and did something about it." Amara's phone rang again. She glanced at it, ready to ignore another reporter, but paused. "It's Diane from the Medical Foundation again." She answered the call and listened for a moment. "He wants to meet with us, the owner himself?" Another pause. "I don't know, Diane. We're trying to put this behind us." She listened some more. "All right. I'll talk to James and call you back." She hung up and turned to her husband. "Marcel Beaumont, the owner of Le Chateau, just flew back from Paris. He fired Henri, the manager who kicked us out. Now he wants to meet with us personally to apologize." James frowned. Is he trying to save his business, or does he really care about what happened? Diane says he seems genuinely upset about how we were treated. She's known him for years through the foundation events. She thinks we should hear him out. James wasn't convinced. Why should we give him the time of day after what his restaurant did to us? I'm not saying we should, Amara replied. But if there's a chance to turn this into something positive, maybe we should try. People are watching what we do next. James thought about it. He was still angry, but Amara had a point. Fine. But we meet on our terms, not his. Not at his restaurant and not as some publicity stunt. The next day, Marcel Beaumont sat nervously in a small conference room at James's architecture firm. He had asked to meet at Le Chateau, to show them how sorry he was with a special meal, but they had refused. He understood why. When James and, Amara walked in, Marcel stood up quickly. Mr. and Mrs. Wilson, thank you for agreeing to meet with me. I can't begin to express how sorry I am for what happened at my restaurant. Are you sorry it happened, or sorry it was recorded? James asked bluntly. Marcel didn't flinch at the question. I deserve that, but I want you to know that what happened goes against everything I believe in and everything I've tried to build. My parents were immigrants who faced discrimination every day. I grew up watching people treat them as less than human because of their accents and the color of their skin. I promised myself my restaurant would never be that kind of place. Yet it is, Amara said quietly. Marcel nodded sadly. Yes, and that's my failure. I hired the wrong people. I wasn't there to stop it. But I want to make it right, not just with you, but with everyone. How do you plan to do that? James asked, still skeptical but willing to listen. Marcel took a deep breath. I've already fired Henri and the hostess, but that's just the start. I want to implement diversity training for all staff. I want to establish a scholarship program for minority students interested in culinary arts. And I want to use Le Chateau to host events that promote understanding and equality. James and Amara exchanged a look. They hadn't expected this. Those are good ideas, Amara said cautiously. But words are easy. Actions are what matter. I agree completely, Marcel said. That's why I'm not asking for your forgiveness today. I'm asking for your help. Help me turn Le Chateau into a place that stands for equality and respect. Help me make sure what happened to you never happens to anyone else in my restaurant. For the first time since entering the room, James felt his anger begin to fade. This wasn't a man trying to save his business with empty promises. This was someone who seemed to genuinely want to make things right. We'll think about it, James said finally. As they left the meeting, Amara squeezed James's hand. What do you think? James was quiet for a moment. I think he might be serious. And if he is, maybe this is our chance to make a real difference. What had started as a horrible night of discrimination was turning into something neither James, Amara, nor Marcel could have predicted. A potential partnership that might change not just one restaurant, but set an example for businesses throughout the city. A week after their meeting with Marcel, James and Amara sat in their living room discussing his proposal. The media attention had finally started to die down, though they still received emails and messages from people sharing similar experiences. What do you think we should do? Amara asked, curled up on the couch with a cup of tea. Marcel seemed sincere, but is it our job to help him fix his restaurant? James paced the room, thinking. It's not our job, no. We could walk away and let him figure it out himself. He paused. But I keep thinking about what my father always said. Don't just point out problems. Be part of the solution. Amara smiled. James's father had been a civil rights activist in the 1960s. He had taught James that change came from engagement, not avoidance. I spoke with Diane again today, Amara said. She's known Marcel for years. She believes he really wants to make things right, not just save his business. James nodded. I did some research on him. Did you know his parents were Haitian immigrants? His father was a dishwasher and his mother cleaned hotel rooms. He worked his way up from nothing. That doesn't excuse what happened at his restaurant, Amara pointed out. No, it doesn't, James agreed. But it might explain why he's so devastated by it. This goes against everything he claims to stand for. Their doorbell rang. James checked the security camera on his phone. "It's Lisa," he said, referring to the woman who had recorded the video at the restaurant. They had invited her over after she reached out to apologize for making them the center of unwanted attention. James opened the door. Lisa was a middle-aged white woman with kind eyes and nervous hands that couldn't stay still. "Thank you for seeing me," she said as Amara offered her tea. "I wanted to say in person how sorry I am that my video caused such chaos in your lives." "Don't apologize," Amara said. "You did the right thing." Lisa looked relieved. "I couldn't just sit there and watch. It happened. My daughter's husband is black, and I've seen how people treat them sometimes when they're out together. It makes my blood boil." "What made you record it?" James asked, curious. "When I saw how that hostess looked at you both, I just knew something was wrong. And then when other people without reservations were seated right away..." She shook her head. "I never expected the video to go viral. I just wanted to show the manager later and complain." They talked for nearly an hour. Lisa told them about her family, her daughter and son-in-law, and her mixed-race grandchildren. Before she left, she asked, "What's going to happen with the restaurant? I heard the owner reached out to you." James and Amara exchanged a look. "We're still deciding," Amara said. After Lisa left, they returned to their discussion. "I think we should do it," James said suddenly. "I think we should help Marcel transform Le Chateau." Amara raised an eyebrow. "What changed your mind?" "Talking to Lisa, hearing about her daughter and son-in-law. This isn't just about us or one bad night, it's about all the people who face this kind of treatment every day. If we can help change one place, make it truly inclusive, maybe it can serve as an example for others." Amara thought about it. "You're right. And Marcel's idea about the culinary scholarship for minority students, that could make a real difference in young people's lives." The next day, they called Marcel and agreed to work with him. Marcel was overjoyed and immediately proposed a meeting to discuss concrete plans. When they arrived at his office, they found him with notebooks full of ideas. "I've been thinking nonstop about this," Marcel explained. "I want to do more than just put a Band-Aid on the problem. I want Le Chateau to become a model for other restaurants." Over the next 3 hours, they outlined a comprehensive plan. Le Chateau would close for a month for renovations and retraining. All staff would undergo diversity and inclusion training. Marcel would establish the scholarship program they had discussed. And most surprisingly, he asked if James's architecture firm would help redesign the restaurant's interior. "The current design is very traditional French," Marcel explained. "All the artwork, all the decoration celebrates only one culture. I want the new Le Chateau to celebrate many cultures, to feel welcoming to everyone." James was surprised, but intrigued by the idea. "I'd need to see if my firm can take on the project, but personally I'm interested." "And I had another thought," Marcel continued, looking at Amara. "Your medical foundation does such important work. What if we hosted a monthly charity dinner with proceeds going to organizations fighting discrimination and promoting equality?" Amara nodded slowly. "The foundation board would need to approve it, but I think they'd be supportive." As they continued talking, a genuine excitement built among them. What had started as a terrible incident was transforming into an opportunity for meaningful change. 2 weeks later, Marcel held a press conference outside Le Chateau. Reporters from local and national news outlets gathered, curious about what the restaurant owner would say after the viral video had damaged his business so badly. Marcel stood at a podium with James and Amara beside him. This had been their idea, to show a united front, to demonstrate that this was a partnership, not just damage control. 3 weeks ago, a terrible incident occurred at my restaurant, Marcel began. 2 respected members of our community, Dr. Amara Wilson and Mr. James Wilson, were treated with discrimination and disrespect. There is no excuse for what happened, and I take full responsibility. Cameras flashed as he continued. Today, I'm not here to make excuses. I'm here to announce that Le Chateau will be closing for the next month, but when we reopen, it will be as a transformed establishment. Marcel outlined their plans, the retraining, the redesign, the scholarship program, and the charity dinners. As he spoke, James noticed something remarkable happening. The reporters, who had come expecting a standard apology, were leaning forward, genuinely interested. This wasn't the usual corporate response to a PR disaster. This was something new. When Marcel finished, a reporter called out, "Dr. and Mr. Wilson, why are you working with the owner of a restaurant that discriminated against you? Why not just sue them?" James stepped forward. "Because filing a lawsuit might win us money, but it wouldn't change the underlying problems. Marcel Beaumont has shown us that he's committed to making real, lasting changes. We believe working together will have a greater impact than fighting against each other." Amara added, "What happened to us happens to people every day, in restaurants, stores, and offices across the country. Most of those incidents aren't captured on video. Most don't get this kind of attention. We want to use this opportunity to create a model for how businesses can become truly inclusive." As they answered more questions, Marcel watched them with admiration. He had expected them to hate him, to want revenge for what his restaurant had done. Instead, they were standing beside him, helping him find a path forward. It was more than he deserved, and he silently promised himself that he wouldn't let them down. Later that day, the first applications for the culinary scholarship program began arriving. James's firm started working on designs for the restaurant renovation, and Amara's medical foundation approved the charity dinner series. What had begun as one of the worst nights of James and Amara's lives was turning into something powerful, a catalyst for change that would impact far more people than just themselves. 6 months had passed since that fateful night when James and Amara were turned away from Le Chateau. Tonight, they stood outside the restaurant again, but everything was different. The old sign with its fancy gold lettering had been replaced with a modern design created by James's firm. The dark, heavy curtains that once covered the windows were gone, replaced by clear glass that allowed people to see inside. The message was clear. This place had nothing to hide. "Are you ready?" James asked, squeezing Amara's hand. She nodded, looking beautiful in a deep purple dress. "Let's see what our work has accomplished." Tonight was the grand reopening of Le Chateau. The restaurant had been closed for renovation much longer than the original 1 month they had planned. As James and Marcel worked on the redesign, they kept finding more ways to improve the space, to make it more welcoming to everyone. They walked through the doors and paused, taking in the transformation. The old paintings of French countryside, scenes had been replaced with artwork from diverse artists around the world. The lighting was warmer, the seating more varied to accommodate different groups and needs. But the biggest change was the wall near the entrance, the community wall. Marcel called it proudly as he greeted them. The wall featured photographs of local people from all backgrounds, along with their stories. In the center was a plaque that read, "Le Chateau celebrates the rich diversity of our community and welcomes all who enter these doors with respect and dignity." "It's beautiful," Amara said, genuinely impressed. "Better than we imagined." Marcel beamed with pride. "None of this would have happened without you both. What began as my greatest shame has become my greatest pride." The restaurant was filled with people for the reopening event. The mayor was there, along with members of the city council. Diane and the board of the medical foundation occupied a large table. Lisa, the woman who had recorded the video, was there with her daughter, son-in-law, and their children. News cameras captured it all. But most importantly, the crowd was diverse. People of all races, ages, and backgrounds filled the space. This was no longer an exclusive club for the wealthy white elite. It was a place for everyone. Marcel clinked a glass to get everyone's attention. "Welcome, friends, to the new Le Chateau. 6 months ago, this restaurant made a terrible mistake. We turned away Dr. Amara and Mr. James Wilson because of the color of their skin." He paused, his voice thick with emotion. That night could have been the end of this restaurant, and maybe it should have been. But instead, thanks to the incredible grace and vision of the Wilsons, it became a new beginning. He gestured to James and Amara, who stood near him. "These two remarkable people could have sued us, could have celebrated our downfall, and no one would have blamed them. Instead, they offered partnership. They showed us how to be better." Marcel went on to explain all the changes they had made. Beyond the physical renovation, every staff member had gone through extensive training. The old policy of favoring regular customers was gone. 10 young people from underprivileged backgrounds had received the first round of culinary scholarships and were now working in the kitchen, learning from top chefs. And tonight, Marcel announced, every dollar spent here will go to the new Le Chateau Foundation for Equality, which will fund programs fighting discrimination throughout our city. The crowd applauded enthusiastically. As the evening continued, James and Amara moved around the room talking with guests. Many people shared their own stories of discrimination, thanking the couple for taking a stand. A young black woman approached them shyly. "Excuse me, Dr. and Mr. Wilson. I'm Tasha, one of the scholarship recipients. I just wanted to thank you. Before this opportunity, I was working at a fast food restaurant with no path forward. Now I'm learning from some of the best chefs in the city. You changed my life." As Tasha walked away, Amara felt tears in her eyes. "This is what makes it all worthwhile," she whispered to James. Later in the evening, Marcel invited James and Amara to join him in the kitchen. The space had been completely redesigned based on input from chefs of various cultural backgrounds. The result was a kitchen that could prepare not just traditional French cuisine, but dishes from around the world. "I have something to show you," Marcel said, leading them to a small private dining room adjacent to the kitchen. Inside, a table was set for two with candles and flowers. "What's this?" James asked. Marcel smiled. "This is the anniversary dinner you never got to have 6 months ago. The meal you were turned away from. Tonight our chefs have prepared it specially for you," Amara gasped. "Marcel, you didn't have to do this." "I wanted to," he insisted. "It's my way of saying thank you, but also of coming full circle. What happened that night was terrible, but look at all the good that has come from it." He was right. In the 6 months since the incident, the story of Le Chateau's transformation had inspired other businesses in the city to examine their own practices. The scholarship program had expanded to include other restaurants. Amara's medical foundation had started a new initiative to address racial disparities in healthcare, and James's architecture firm had received numerous requests to help redesign spaces to be more inclusive. As they enjoyed their anniversary dinner, 6 months late but perhaps more meaningful now, James and Amara reflected on the journey. "Did you ever imagine that night would lead to all this?" Amara asked. James shook his head. "Never. I was so angry when we left. All I could think about was how nothing ever changes." "But things do change," Amara said. "Sometimes it takes something dramatic to start the process, but change is possible." After dinner, they rejoined the main celebration. A local jazz band was playing and people were dancing. The atmosphere was joyful and relaxed, a far cry from the stuffy, tense environment that had existed before. Near the end of the evening, Marcel approached them one last time. "There's one more thing I want to show you," he said, leading them to the entrance. There, beside the door, was a small bronze plaque. It read, "On January 15th, 2025, this restaurant failed to live up to its values when it turned away Dr. Amara and Mr. James Wilson. Their dignity and forgiveness taught us that true excellence comes not just from the food we serve, but from how we treat each person who enters our doors. This plaque stands as a reminder that we must earn the right to serve our community every single day." James read the words twice, deeply moved. "You didn't have to do this either." "Yes, I did," Marcel said firmly. "We must remember our failures as well as our successes. That's how we grow." As James and Amara drove home that night, they felt a sense of closure, but also of new beginnings. What had started as an ugly incident of discrimination had transformed. Not just one restaurant, but had sparked conversations and changes throughout the city. "You know what my father would say about all this?" James said as they pulled into their driveway. Amara smiled. "What?" "He'd say that change doesn't come from cursing the darkness, it comes from lighting a candle." James looked back in the direction of the restaurant, now glowing warmly in the distance. "I think we lit a pretty good one." Amara leaned over and kissed him softly. "Happy anniversary. A little late." Sometimes the worst moments in our lives can lead to the most unexpected and powerful changes. For James and Amara Wilson, What began as a night of humiliation became the catalyst for transformation. Not just for one restaurant, but for an entire community. And in the end, the fancy restaurant that had once ejected them had indeed come to regret it deeply, but in ways that ultimately made everyone's lives better.